I think you come to the Belgian to win it.
Wabash always fight.
Hello and welcome to the Don Morel Show, your chance to hear the thoughts and comments of the head football coach of the Little Giant program. And Coach, it's been a couple of weeks since we've seen the Wabash football team, but the last time the Little Giants were on the field, a big 42-35 victory at Wittenberg, an outstanding offensive performance, over 500 yards of total offense. I know you wanted to be able to run a lot of plays, really keep their defense on the field and keep them, keep their offense off the field. But defensively, your team made some big plays as well, and it was really a good team effort, I felt.
I did too. We gave up 35 points, 7 you have to negate. It was a kickoff return that went down to the 6-yard line or something, and we certainly need to fix that. We've had a nice bye week to, I think, make some changes and corrections, and we are ready to go for this weekend.
You mentioned the bye week. How important was it to come at this time? You've had a really hectic schedule against some very good football teams, and you still have good football teams remaining on the schedule. So how important was it to get through those first 5 games, figure out where this team is, and then have a week to just kind of fine-tune some things?
In a perfect world, you would always have a week 5 bye, and unfortunately, it never works out. Scheduling is much more of a challenge with Allegheny leaving the league, and you have to take a game as you can get it. But this has been just great for us.
A great performance again by Liam Thompson as he continues to play well. But really, if you had to pick an offensive star of the game in the contest against Wittenberg, what a job by Cade Campbell. Somebody mentioned to me after the game, just every time he touched the football, something special seemed to happen. 2 big touchdowns, 28-yard touchdown run, and then he had the big 66-yard touchdown reception where he just ran away from people. He really brought a nice spark to the offense.
He does. He's a great change-up back. He's patient in sharing the time with Donovan Snyder, but he is an explosive play waiting to happen when he gets out there.
You had a couple of things that haven't happened in a while in Wabash football in the game against Wittenberg. 2 receivers go over 100 yards. Penn Stoller and Cooper Sullivan both had big games against the Tigers. Really looked like they were trying to take Derek Allen away from the offense. And because of the weapons you have at wide receiver, looked like Liam just said, okay, fine. Take Derek away, we'll use Cooper and Penn and beat you all day. And he had a really tremendous throw on the run to his right, and Penn Stoller ran kind of a matching route and hit him for a big gain that kept the drive alive and led, I believe, to that 66-yard touchdown catch by Cade Campbell.
Yeah, those two are really getting on the same page together. The other guy that's dynamic is Heisman Skeens. So we're fortunate to have a collection of really good players. I also thought the offensive line played very well.
Yeah, very good protection. Donovan Snyder got some big key runs at key moments, able to keep the clock running, and again, let you run the number of plays that you did, 78 total in the ball game. Looking at the other thing that happened or didn't happen is probably more appropriate. No penalties in the entire game for the Little Giants. First time that's happened since 2003. I mean, obviously it's important to keep the penalties down, but how key was that, playing a huge game against Wittenberg, to play mistake-free football in terms of not giving away free yards due to penalties?
It's really good. It's the cleanest game we've played since I've been here, and then especially playing at Wittenberg is difficult. It is a hard place to go and play and win. And I think we saw with last week's results, Wittenberg's a very good football team.
Wittenberg with a big win against DePaul down in Greencastle last week, so that has really made some changes to the conference standings, and that makes this week's game against Ohio Wesleyan a really big game. We're going to talk about that game here in just a minute. But talking about special things, we can turn our attention to special teams. Had a chance earlier last week to talk with Carson Goodman. Carson is a senior on the Wabash football team as a backup quarterback, and Carson is also a holder for special teams, for field goals and extra points, and is the signal caller on the sideline for the Little Giants, and we got into details about what all that involves. Let's hear from Carson in that interview. Our guest today on the Don Morel Show is Carson Goodman, senior quarterback and special teams member for the Little Giant program. And Carson, you're one of the seniors on the team, have been with this program now 4 years. What type of leadership role do you bring as one of the experienced quarterbacks? I mean, you work obviously with Liam Thompson, who's having another tremendous season, but you have a lot of involvement with the offense as well, both in practice and on game day. Talk a little bit about your responsibilities with the team.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting role and something that I kind of had to step into over my years here. Because coming in, obviously I wanted to get on the field, but when you come in and you have a guy like Liam Thompson, it's kind of hard to do that. So I really just tried to find a role on the team, and I found that Coach Morel gave me a good opportunity in being able to make the signals and also signal the plays in. And so that's really been my role, and I've kind of just stepped into that over the years.
Tell us a little bit about that process. I mean, if somebody takes a moment, and I've done this from time to time, and I certainly do it during practice, get a chance to look over at you and you're going through what looks like a series of dance moves. I mean, it is a well choreographed event to signal in the play, and you talk about developing those. I mean, how does that process all come about from getting those signals developed and then signaling in a play on a Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. It looks very complex because there's so many of them, but it's pretty simple. We kind of make them up as a collective group during the meetings, and then I'm the one that's posed with the challenge of doing them as fast as I can during the game in practice.
You also have other responsibilities during the game. You are a holder on special teams, and we're taping this the day after the Colts-Denver game, which was a field goal fest.
Yeah.
And that holder role really becomes important. You're really kind of the captain of the special teams unit. And I know, talking to Coach Morel, that's something you take very seriously, because he's talked about, and I've seen it, in practice and on game day, that you're really barking out commands. If the snap's not right, you're making sure the guys get the ball to you exactly right. And it's a whole timing process, between Sam Long or Ben Jeffrey and the snap, your hold, and then Brigham Anderson's kick. I mean, there's a lot involved to make sure Wabash gets either an extra point or a field goal successfully. Take us through that process.
Yeah, I mean, we could see last season especially, there were a few games, especially OWU, now that we're coming up on them next week, that were decided by a PAT or a field goal. So it really is something that you have to take seriously, and it's an important facet of the game, because 3 points can win or lose you the game. So yeah, I think it's important to, like you mentioned, like barking out commands. Like, I think it's important to be perfect in the little things, and the things that aren't as complex as running an offense, you should be really good at. So I do take it pretty seriously, because, like I said, it could win or lose you the game.
Well, and we've already seen some close games, go both ways for Wabash this year. So every point is important, and that becomes a big key to the game. What has this Wabash experience, both on the football field and in the classroom, what has this meant to you?
Yeah, it's meant a lot. Coming here, I knew that it was going to be hard. They obviously tell you that it's a challenging place, but I wasn't sure how hard it would be. And then I got here and realized it was probably a little bit harder than I was expecting. So with the accumulation of being in Crawfordsville, really in the middle of nowhere, and going to an all-male school, but especially the academic rigor and playing for a program that expects as much success as Wabash expects. So it has been tough, but it's also been one of the most rewarding things I've done in my life so far.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your major? What are your plans after you graduate?
Yeah, so I major in biology. I minor in chemistry. I plan to attend medical school after undergrad and hopefully become a practicing physician in Indiana. We'll see what I do. I'm not entirely sure yet, but I'm kind of open to the idea of being flexible in medicine.
That's Carson Goodman, senior quarterback on the Wabash football team, holder on special teams, on field goals and extra points, and one of the big resources for an outstanding Wabash College football team over the past 4 years. Carson, thanks for joining us today, and we'll go back to the rest of the Don Morel Show. And Coach, always good to hear from some of the guys who really are kind of behind the scenes. You're not going to see Carson's name appear in the box score. At least we hope not, because if it does, it's usually because there's been a botched snap and a panic play or something like that. But great to get to hear from him about some of the things he's involved in and his contributions to your football program.
Same with Noah Kent and Jacob Ransford. They're two student assistant coaches, but they really contribute. And then when we practice, Carson allows all of the coaches on offense to coach, because he can get the plays in. So it's incredibly helpful.
Coming off of that, we mentioned before we played the Carson Goodman piece. We're getting ready now for Ohio Wesleyan. This will be another big test. This is the last undefeated team in the conference standings. They are 3-0 coming into Little Giant Stadium this weekend. This is a very good defensive football team. They are only allowing opposing teams to score 18 points a ball game. In conference play, they've been even better than that. I believe their last two opponents have one touchdown in each game. They have really been solid defensively. What are you going to face this weekend with a good Ohio Wesleyan football team?
I learned when I came here in 2012, they're just exceptionally good on defense. They're well coached. They have tough players. I think what's more scary is the last couple of weeks, their offense has really started to come on. So they are a very good football team. They took it to Denison last week, and we're going to have play a great game to have a chance to beat them. They beat us last year.
Yeah, one of the players, and he made a big play in the overtime last year that sealed the victory for Ohio Wesleyan, is Markell Henry. A tremendous player who will really wreck things in the backfield. He was among the leaders in the conference in sacks last year. So it'll be a big test. You mentioned how well the offensive line played 2 weeks ago at Wittenberg. This will be a really big test for that offensive line group, I would think.
It is, and I think that whole the defensive front for Ohio Wesleyan is really good. So we are going to have to play our best to keep up with them.
You mentioned it was an overtime loss at Ohio Wesleyan last year, and it was a game that protection was a big key. They, I believe, ended up with 6 sacks in that ball game overall. Henry, I believe, had 2, including the sack fumble in overtime to put the game away. Turnovers, obviously, against a team with a good defense like Ohio Wesleyan, that's got to be one of the keys this week to stay away from those. You were able to do that against Wittenberg, had 1 interception, and really just looked like it was a ball that, got into the wind, got a little beyond where Liam was looking to get it, and the Wittenberg player made a good play on it. But your defense was able to generate a couple of big key turnovers in that game on Saturday against Wittenberg 2 weeks ago. Got the interception at the end of the period in the second quarter. And then you got a key fumble and a fumble recovery that stopped a Wittenberg drive, and then you were able to go down and score off of that. So turnovers are obviously something that's key in any game, but is that going to be a big thing to keep an eye on this week?
I think it will, especially in these, when you're playing the better teams in the conference. I just feel like we're all pretty equal. Turnovers play a big part of it. Penalties play a big part of it. You don't want to beat yourself.
We mentioned there are still plenty of games on the schedule. There's a big one at the end of the regular season. 2 important games still here at home, but this is a big game. This is, again, against the last team that's undefeated in conference play. The way some things have worked out over the last couple of weeks, this is a game that could determine a lot of the final standings in conference play. How important is it for your team going into this game to know that they still have all of the goals that they set in front of themselves at the start of the season are still right there to grab?
It's really important, and we can control what we can control. After losing to Denison, I think our team did a great job at Wittenberg of handling that business. And you need to take this whole season in small bites. So we have a giant contest Saturday, and we just need to handle that the way we do week in and week out with our culture and process.
That game Saturday begins at 1 o'clock right here at Little Giant Stadium. Tickets available online. It would be great to have you come out to the game in person. It is fall break on the Wabash College campus, so there will not be a large student presence, so it would be great to have people from the community, people from the area, Wabash alumni, returning to campus this Saturday to support the Little Giant football team. If you cannot make it back on campus, you can still watch the game online. The links are on the Wabash football schedule page, both for tickets and for the broadcast. As always, you can go to sports.wabash.edu/tickets to purchase those tickets online, and to watch the game, go to sports.wabash.edu/WCVN to watch the call with Jim Amadon and Steve Hoffman. Pre-game starts at about 12:40 on Saturday afternoon with this Don Morel show before the opening kick of the game at 1 o'clock. Coach, best of luck on Saturday against Ohio Wesleyan. Look forward to talking to you about that game, hopefully after a Little Giant win.
Thank you.
You've been watching the Don Morel Show, your chance to hear the thoughts and comments of the head coach of the Little Giant program. We will talk to you next week.
I think you come to the Belgian to win it.
Wabash always fight.